Okay, so I'm actually in pre-production for a short film coming up, and the director and I are talking through possible aspect ratios for the project and for the film that could, one, benefit and help achieve the look that we are going for. So I want to set up a little bit of a test scenario to show off the different aspect ratios that the camera we were using could provide. This test is not perfect, however, it was a quick way and an easy way to show off the different options that we did have. But first off, the camera we're using is the Sony Venice. It is on its biggest update, so 6.3, and has every single license that you can have. So that'll be very important for later in the video. There were a couple of key factors that we really were trying to focus on and lean into. Our first one, and probably the biggest one, was obviously we wanted an aspect ratio that really helped move the mood and theme of our story, right? Something that added value and helped tonally. Being on a budget was also a big factor for us. While we did have a couple of SSDs and hard drives ready available, we don't have a million that we can just fill up. So we had to take into consideration the record limits of different ratios. Now, one of the last factors, and one of the bigger ones as well, is that we were also filming in slow motion. Now, this is really fun and exciting. However, even with the Venice being an amazing camera, it is a little bit old, so we don't have the freedom and flexibility to shoot slow motion at 120 in open gate or full frame. And so there is a little bit of a crop factor and different variations on depending on the exact ratio and resolution mixture that we have. So those are the three things we were testing and looking to find a good balance of that would benefit our film and that would have a nice easy mix of things. Okay, now kind of knowing those three things, I want to show off the different options that the Venice was able to capture and the test that we created. Again, this isn't a perfect test, and you might need to test in a different way for your different scenarios. However, I just want to show off what we saw and what we were thinking about. So starting off with 6K. Having the option of open gate in this camera is so cool, and then diving into more of the full frame look is beautiful. The 6K options at this camera are incredibly fun. Keep in mind the limiting recording limits of 6K. All right, now here's 5K, which is just a little bit smaller than full frame. Definitely a solid middle ground between our full frame and our Super 35 capabilities of this camera. I think it gives you a little bit more of a recording limit and a little bit more flexibility. But yeah, I do love Super 35, and so I want to jump into the 4K looks of this sensor. Now these definitely seem very fun, and as a guy who had the red Komodo originally, I love Super 35 and the Mini and the Alexa 35. I mean, great cameras. Super 35 is really cool and definitely still valuable in 2026. So these are really fun to just see in my opinion as well. But yeah, there is one more to look at. It is 3.8K. Just to show you one, is one aspect ratio. All right, so that was every single different aspect ratio, recording resolution, all that kind of stuff that we could use while still taking advantage of the Sony Venice's R7 RAW recorder and an XOCN file at standard quality. And to give you a little bit insight of our story, it is definitely more of a hardship one, and there are a couple of dramatic moments within the scene, and we're really following characters through a big hardship. That being said, I want to talk through the two different aspect ratios that we chose for the film. So landing on our first resolution, our main resolution throughout the story, we actually will be shooting on 6K 239:1. This is a really fun format and definitely has a nice compression that I think will really go along well with our characters who are going through a hardship, kind of compressing them and closing them off into this world that they're living in. This, along with the fact that I do think the director really does like the anamorphic look and we're shooting on spherical, kind of nice mix of both right there, sort of. But we do have another one we're using, like I mentioned, and that is actually 4K 6.5. We have a pretty dramatic scene that is really intense and fun, and we're actually shooting in slow motion, hence the 4K-ness of the actual ratio we were choosing. I don't want to give away the story, but to pretty much think modern warfare breaching a door slow motion vibes. If you know, you know. really cool. But we do think that'll be a really nice contrast for our pretty much climax peak of the movie compared to our more compressed 239. So I'm very excited for the contrast. I've actually never shot a film using different ratios for the edit. So very excited about that. But yeah, I really just want to walk through that, it is really important to think about the little things like aspect ratio before going on a shoot and do some tests. This test wasn't perfect, again, like I mentioned, and there are definitely ways to test this more. But this was a really quick way for us to work with the director and just talk through what could work for us and show off the different possibilities of this camera specifically, especially going into recording limits and frame rates. But every decision does matter when shooting something like a film or even a commercial, and it's really important to think about, they could really add or take away from your story. I posted a little segment on Instagram of this, and I got a bunch of fun different comments about how guys go about, deciding what aspect ratios they like and what they use for different scenarios. So it is all an opinion as well, so don't take it too hard if somebody thinks something differently of you. That being said though, I would love to know what ratios that you guys like the best and love to film in. Yeah, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a good day.